Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today. As we kind of tease this a little bit, this has been a fun collaboration event that the clubs of DC, Richmond, and Charlottesville have decided to put together. What we've really been trying to do over the past, I guess, year or so, however long it's been since we pivoted to virtual events, is really trying to make sure that not only are individual alumni not as isolated together, but the clubs aren't as isolated as well. So we've been trying to do a lot of programming that is really able to appeal to, UVA alumni, no matter where you're based, whether you're in Virginia, in DC, in New York, and you see these events and you want to learn more about what's going on with our businesses and alumni around the country as well. So I know that we are super excited to have this event. Many people responded to me in some of the marketing that they've had Gearharts over the years and are massive fans of it. Some even living right near the stores in Richmond and Charlottesville. So I know that Tim is very excited to meet all of you guys. As a little bit of housekeeping, as we're going through this, please feel free to ask any and all questions that you have. I will say we are going to leave some time at the end to really just dedicate to Q&A, where we're going to open it up and let people fire the questions that they have. But if you think of questions as we're going through this, just submit it in the chat. You can either do it as a group or do it directly to me. I'm going to be picking those out and asking them to Tim as he's going through his conversation. Likewise, what we're going to be doing afterwards is sending just a quick follow-up email with some resources around Gearharts and anything that pops up during this conversation that you guys might want to see. And whenever we get the recording for the event, I'll be sure to send that to everyone as well, so that you guys can share that and watch that at your leisure. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the man of the hour, Tim Gearhart, a Charlottesville legend and establishment, and let him introduce himself to everyone.
Oh, thanks so much, Aaron. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you having me, and just it's really nice to be with you all. Yeah, so my name's Tim Gearhart. We're a business that had started in 2001, let me kind of get this. I think it's important, and it's a kind of a big part of our story, is really that UVA connection in a couple of different ways. One is I could talk a little bit about my personal background later, but really the two really influential parts of kind of what makes Gearharts where we are now is really one of my first gigs as a pastry chef. I was working at Hamilton's at First and Main here in Charlottesville, and so I was their first pastry chef, and just kind of learning my chops and learning the ropes a little bit in pastry. And I met Bill and Kate Hamilton, who are both alumni of UVA, and graduated UVA and went on to the glamorous restaurant business, which is in Charlottesville is pretty cool, actually. And so we're talking the early 90s on that. And so I got to know them real well. Great, Bill's been a great mentor, and just very, very fortunate to have him, to work with him even at that time, and Kate as well in the beginning. And so kind of fast forward 20 or a few years, I worked for them for a while, went on, did some stints all over the place, everything from a dude ranch out in Wyoming to like a luxury dude ranch to a castle in England that was turned luxury bed and breakfast or luxury inn, and came back, got settled again in Boston at the time, and this is the late 90s, and Bill and I had always kind of kept in touch. We always chit-chatted a little bit about how we thought Charlottesville would be a really fun, such a great food community, and how lucky we are. And, wow, a chocolate shop, a little artisan chocolate shop might be kind of cool. And so we just kind of, again, that was something we chit-chatted a little bit here and there, and brought it back up in the late 90s. And, just the right time for me personally. I had been in I worked many Christmas days and Thanksgivings and working in hotels and the like. So it was time for me personally to do something on my own, and not a lot. When you're a pastry chef, generally the next question is, well, so I'm, where are you going to open your bakery would be, the next thing. And it's like, well, what if I like baking, but what if I wanted to, what about something else? And sure enough, artisan chocolate was a kind of an up and coming thing. And we just, it was perfect timing on all fronts. And then the second thing I wanted to mention about, how important UVA and the UVA community has been to us is, is just that here in Charlottesville, we're so fortunate, and we see that even in, we see some in Richmond too, because you have those connections with the alumni and folks that lived in, grew up in Charlottesville, went to UVA, or moved to, Charlottesville to go to UVA, then got their first big job in Richmond. So we kind of see a couple of sides of that. But the interesting thing, I think, for, what's meant a lot to Gearharts was just that ever-changing, ever-revolving door of well-traveled, foodie type people, and, intelligent people that looking for something a little different, something, a little outside the box. And, these are the kind of customers that, we attract, and people that kind of get it and understand what we're doing. So I think that was, that was a big, so again, this is whether it's, alumni living here in Charlottesville or Richmond, and or, staff, professors, all these folks, and, even students. It always never ceases to amaze me when, I hear somebody comes in the shop and, they say something to the effect of, I was a student here, my first year or two, we driving around with my parents, we stopped it, we saw we saw the little shop that you used to have. And you guys are now you're our tradition. Or it's just always, it's crazy, to me to kind of to feel that, and to kind of understand our, what, how welcoming Charlottesville is, and UVA is obviously UVA is a huge part of that. So we've been really fortunate on that front. So and just kind of a little, again, just a little bit of background about myself. I mean, I'm in pastry. Pastry was the name of the game for me. Even more kind of unusually, I was always a food kind of person. Even when I was a young kid, I was always interested in kind of finding something a little different in town, whether it was in Charlottesville, where we moved in the 80s, or in the Bay Area when I was younger. There's always looking for something a little different. And so I always had that interest, which is obviously the spark is everything. But I think when I think getting kind of finding that, what to do with that spark was the next big thing. For me personally. But I had a few jobs in high school. Any of you locals around here, I always love to give the plug to Dooners. My first job was dishwasher / busboy at Dooners when I was 13 or 14. And this was like, they'd only been open a couple of years back then. And so it's, I always hold these places really dear. And also I worked at Boar's Head when I was in high school as well. So it's just that real, that Charlottesville was a great place to kind of up and come on that. And then I, when I got out of high school and just kind of did a very, very short stint at Piedmont. I decided that I needed some radical change, and I had this crazy idea to get out of Charlottesville at the time, and the Marine Corps seemed like a brilliant choice for a 7 or 18-year-old. And so I actually, not only did I join the Marines, I actually signed up to be a cook in the Marines. And let me just fill you in really quick. You will almost never talk to a cook that was in the Marines that actually signed up to be a cook. Nobody signs up to be a cook. They're all made to be cooks. But again, it made a lot of sense. I thought it was a fun, it seemed like a really cool, something different. And here's the kicker of that whole story is it truly meant a lot. And really in the sense of, well, besides all the, it did get me out of Charlottesville. I got to go to some really cool places, met a lot of great people and all that. But it also set that groundwork and set that foundation of the attention to detail and the repetitive nature of what I do now. And so whether you're making 1,000, 1,000 omelets, in the morning for a bunch of Marines, or whether you're making 10,000 chocolates, there really was that really, everything has to be the same. Everything had to be, the repetition. This is not rocket science what I do, but I will say it's a craft, and it's something that not everybody, not everybody would be able to can do, in the sense of, I think some people would drive them a little batty. Frankly, I always refer to it as like this OCD paradise, because it is like everything, every chocolate, every day has to look and taste exactly the same. Whether it was made in December, our busiest weeks of the year, all the way to July, our slowest weeks, and people don't care that that whether how busy you are, they want and deserve a great product. So we've so that really was that's an important thing. But in the end, trust me, I find myself, I know how fortunate I am to do what I do for a living, and how it's just not many people get to be in the happy business, and especially as happy as what we do. You have the nostalgic kind of connection that people have with chocolate and food, all the way to just that when you there's nothing better, and any cook will tell you this, but there's nothing better than those little moments. I liken it to I have a 6-year-old in first grade, and I liken it to when they're, you hear the teacher talk about, like that one time, or that one student that has that moment where it just kind of clicks, and they I get it, and so I love, it's really fun to constantly kind of find these ways of, I think from the beginning in 2001, we were a company that, our motto or mantra was this kind of like pushing to kind of light that fire, and get some help somebody kind of find that sudden, like, wow, I never would have thought of that. That's really weird. Miso paste in chocolate or in a caramel. I never would have thought of that. Not that I'm saying that I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I've always been careful not to, in that sense. I think in a lot of artisan chocolate these days, I think it kind of went through this phase, I think, where it's coming back to normal a little bit now. But I think there was this thing where people were like, how can I push the boundaries here? And, just because you can put, mushrooms in chocolate, doesn't mean that you should. So I've always been more of a little more conservative on that. Maybe that's the Marine Corps, still left, but
Can't shake
but
it.
yeah.
Well, and Tim, that's a great question. And kind of what I was curious to know as well is, so take us to, back in the early 2000s, you've somehow gotten tricked into coming back into Charlottesville as well. And I know you were
Mhm.
telling us this too, where even if you're maybe not putting, miso soup into your chocolates, like what you guys are doing back in the early 2000s, though,
Yeah.
it seemed like that even that was kind of out there in the world of chocolates. Can you kind of set the stage for us of what it was like starting a company when fine chocolates weren't even really a thing, and then how you sort of caught that right place, right time wave?
Yeah, sure. I think it's I think when you're starting this, you got your business idea, you got you're really, things are moving, you get your business plan going. And one of the first things that, that was, that you obviously want to start doing is seeing who else is doing what you want to do, checking out the competition, seeing, getting to know your surroundings here. And one of the first things that Bill and I noticed was, there just wasn't, we couldn't find what we were looking to make. And I'm not implying that we were the first. We certainly were not the first chocolatier to put chili and spices, and we were not the first one, but we were certainly some of the first in the area, certainly some of the first in Virginia and in the on the East Coast, and there were a handful of places that were really doing that back then. And I think what we were seeing a lot of in those days, and I'm not here to, I'm not a judgmental statement. It's just, it is what it is. But back in those days, it was a lot about, candy and, like fudge and certain kinds of truffles, they pretty much, which was encompassing all things chocolate when people would refer to truffles. But, there was this kind of a real, it was just it just wasn't maybe pushing again, I wasn't looking to be outrageous, but I definitely wanted to push the boundaries a little bit and kind of push people's interest and intrigue and kind of get that spark. And so, yeah, that was kind of, we realized that pretty quick and started poking around and getting our business plan together. Bill's a chef as well, a savory, chef. And he has a great palate, just kind of myself having the pastry background, understanding flavors and textures and this and that and techniques. I think that was our real secret, secret sauce there. I mean, kind of having those that firepower, behind us. I think a lot of folks, as the years have gone on, have come and gone or not always gone, but places of, it's not the newest, there's not, has become a much more competitive market. And I have former employees that have opened up shops. I mean, not here in Charlottesville, but which is great. I don't have a problem with that. But I think that you just try to, I think what really becomes the key, and we were chit-chatting a little bit before this and kind of saying, like, be careful what you wish for sometimes, of this kind, you get this, this moment where you become part of the standard, and because you've been around a long time and you have a good presence, but then, how do you keep, what's next? What's the next step as not only an entrepreneur, but also, in the end, I'm a cook, I mean, I love making people happy with food. And so how do you got to balance that with your life, your personal life, your family, and grow a business and all that come along with it. So it's a real challenge. But I think in the end, I think what's kept us moving in the right direction is our not being afraid to take a few leaps of faith here and there, but also it's okay to mess up. Now, I don't mess up, but I mean, I think it's okay if you do. But so the I don't know. I feel like there's a real you can't take it too seriously. And even in our time, even now when I'm, when you're when I talk about chocolate and we do, whether it's a virtual demo or we do hands-on truffle classes in non-COVID times, things like that. You just got to remember that it's a it's a fun business. It's a I want to keep it as lighthearted as possible and as unstuffy as you can, because there's nothing worse than people telling you what you should be tasting and kind of thing. I mean, yes, I have an opinion. You have to have an opinion because people are interested in what you think, and I think that's cool and I get it. But it also is a very subjective thing, just like wine tasting. I mean, you can only tell people so much. You can only, again, kind of get that, kind of help them with that, keep that excitement going. And my part of that is to kind of find these unusual things. Like we do it's funny because people always are they always ask, well, what is your, are you constantly working on things? What's the course of events for a new product? And, then first off, let me say that is important because we have a signature chocolate line that we've been doing for 20 years. Our 16 core chocolates are, these are literally chocolates that we have made since day one. The recipes have not changed. The size of the recipes have not changed. Now we are making way more, and we're doing a lot more of those recipes, and we found ways to be able to to help assist us make more chocolates. I mean, to give you a quick idea, we were hand dipping, or I was hand dipping, with two dipping forks. I would hand dip between 500 and 700 pieces a day in the early days, which is a lot of chocolate. I mean, it's no small feat, when you're to make them perfect and all that. And then I would say that in the past Christmas seasons and the holidays and Valentine's Day, it would not be unusual for us to be making upwards of 12,000 pieces a day. Now, we're not hand dipping them with forks, but they are still 100% handmade. And they're, you have to have some help to help move along the process. You can't, it is, while it's a joy and a pleasure to do what I do, it also is a business, and I have to, put food on my employees' tables and mine. So it's important that we continue to grow as a business. So, but finding that balance is really the key. And, I just think in the big picture, I think we happened to catch a great wave at the right time. I mean, Americans were looking at chocolate differently in the 90s. And one real quick analogy I always love to give about it is, I think of it as like coffee in the 90s, or micro beer, micro breweries, beer, wine in the 80s. Kind of like people are very used to mass production. You have the big wineries, Ernest and Julio Gallo in the 80s, and you have Budweiser and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, you have whatever kind of coffee you want to talk about. Then all of a sudden, like Starbucks appears, and now of course Starbucks has become this big giant thing. But back then, like a Sierra Nevada beer, or Wicked. I remember Wicked Pete's was another good one. These companies that were just like suddenly got you to understand, like, wow, it doesn't have to be like this. What if I do want to try something maybe that has a local flavor and a local tip, and chocolate was kind of one of those things that was in that line, and we just kind of were at the right place, right time for that. Sure, we could have grown probably faster than we have, but I think in the end, you have to you have to just be careful, how quickly you move. I mean, I think that there's a reason we've been here 20 years and we continue to have a growth. And I think I might have done a few things differently, but in the end, I mean, I think we're very pleased, and we were just very fortunate. And and besides and I can't underscore enough how important the community here in Charlottesville and Richmond, whether it's pandemic time or whether it's not pandemic time, people have always been there. And I think that's we've been very lucky. And there's nothing better than, you got people that talk about when they remember our kiosk at Fashion Square Mall when we were waiting for our space to be finished. And, my mom or Kate Hamilton would be working it, and sometimes me late at night. And, it's pretty cool, when you go from that to our, to where we're at now, shipping 300-400 boxes of chocolate out, via, the internet every day sometimes, and making all this chocolate, making all these people happy. It's a pretty good gig. I'm not going to lie.
No, that's awesome. And so I got actually an interesting question that popped in through the chat. So going back to like kind of the earlier days where you've kind of established your brand and you're getting into it, you talked a little bit about the sort of the need to balance, I'll paraphrase, between, playing the hits where it's like, I know these work and I know people like these,
Yeah.
and experimenting with, something new that, as a creative person, you want to see, can I make this work? Was there any sort of flavor that you sort of stumbled upon or tried where it was as soon as you were done, it was like the chef's kiss? You're like, I know this is going to be a winner. And then it actually turned out to be that way.
It's so I think, one thing we've understood very early is I personally am probably more of a product person than I am an entrepreneur. I get an idea, and there's nothing more exciting as a creative person, to have an idea, and then you're thinking about on your drive home, commuting, and then a couple of 6 months later it's in the New York Times. I mean, that's a pretty cool scale of time there, that when you can do that. Now that doesn't happen all the time, and that's not just but my point is it's just there's to kind of get through something that was a little a teeny idea to fruition is pretty amazing. And I would use, there have been several things that I knew that they evolved very quickly. Maybe not exactly what I thought they were going to be in the beginning. Like our miso caramel was one. The peanut butter pups, which people I still talk about, or people still talk about to me, as one of our bigger hits, that that had a lot of national attention. And I think that that was a really interesting product, because that really was something that I was thinking about one day, that we just didn't make a lot of kid-friendly products, and a lot of our stuff was very adult themed, in the sense of like spices and cardamom and ginger and chili and all these things that are not generally first thing on kids on their minds. So peanut butter pups kind of became this thing of like, wow, well, peanut butter, kids love peanut butter, let's make it a milk chocolate as well. And then it'd be kind of fun to have it be like this whimsical little puppy looking thing. And so sure enough, we started messing around again. It went through a few phases of it, and and it was a huge hit. And it's funny because we hit so many different notes on that product, whether it was because we also we wanted to use it as it was a great product to tap into a charity, because while we'd done lots of charity stuff here locally for our whole existence, we had never really tied into an actual charity before for a single product. And it was always important to me as a veteran. I thought it'd be really fun to do something, to do something that could that would be a great fit for that. And so peanut butter pups kind of took off into this. We sought out a veterans comfort animal, SPCA charity called Companions for Heroes, and where they match SPCA animals with, they go through some training, and they for veterans with PTSD. And it's really great, obviously an amazing mission. And they do, we've donated over $10,000 over the years to it. And 5% of all the sales go straight to them. And I will also mention that the pups are on a bit of a hiatus right now. So we haven't done them the last couple of months, but it's still one of our stronger. It's going to be a very strong seasonal product. But stay tuned. Well, don't if you're looking for it. But it just was so it hit this kind of dog lovers, vets, all these kind of
product. Yeah,
it just really hit. It was really cool. So but in the bigger picture, that was a package, like a whole package product, you know what I mean? But a lot of times, I think, as most cooks would probably tell you, you just have this you make things that make you happy, and you just hope that people follow. And I don't think that no, I'm not, that's certainly, making food that the masses will like is a top priority, but I also want to make things that get me excited and interested. And so, and again, I've already mentioned a couple times, but I do like the miso caramel is happens to be a good example. I mean, of this, salted caramel has been around forever. I've been doing a salted caramel for 15 years, or when we started, close to 15 years now. Salted caramel, I always use the joke or the observation when you're walking into Whole Foods or whatever, and you see salted caramel cereal, that it is full circle. It is done. And so like, what's next? So how else can we, I get it, salty, sweet, it's delicious, like, brightens the salt brightens everything. It's an amazing thing, but come on, we got to do something else. So one day I'm like, wow, I used to make this miso caramel sauce. That was kind of fun. It's naturally salty, has the umami factor. What if we made that into like a little wrapped caramel? And so, Bill and I started playing around and came up with toasted sesame seeds, and it's one of my favorite things that we do. And then also one of our latest things is Lucha Bar Crunch. And I've always loved, like, I don't know whether I ate too many corn nuts as a kid or something, but I always loved those, like those half popped kernels and that kind of vibe. I love that, the crunchy texture and all that. So I've always wanted to do something with corn and chocolate, and carefully, right off the bat, corn and chocolate does not sound great. But when we started, I started thinking about it, and I was like, what are some things that can make this, that can help kind of steer this into the right direction? And came up with like a caramel was going to be the base. I wanted to, we use fresh lime zest and lime juice in the caramel. And then I found out about this thing. People are really into this, but it's called half popped popcorn. And which I was like, one of those moments where I was like, how do I not know about this? But they basically boil kernels, and then you pop them, but they only will pop halfway. And so they're still got that great texture, and you salt them and they're delicious. So we actually put those into the caramel, and then dip it, and it's a bar, and like the size of a Milky Way or whatever. We enrobe it, and then we actually finish it with a little bit of red chili we just kind of sprinkle on top, and it just gives it a little zing and has that awesome kind of texture, crunch, and it's just a really fun product. And at the end of the day, it sells pretty well. People that get it, kind of like miso. If people don't, some people just don't get it, but really, I mean, I love it, and I'm going to probably keep making it, whether we sell 100 a month or 100,000. I don't really care. I'm still going to make it because I like it. And, so there's those products, and, it's just a fun, it's a great way, when you have those 16 signature chocolates that you're known for, you got to find ways to keep the creative juices going. And I guess where I was going with that earlier was, when people ask that, how's that work? And it's just like any other business. I mean, I'm certainly not doing R&D 24/7, or the holidays at certain times of the year is just not possible, because I'm still very involved. My hands, I'm still very hands-on. And but I'll go through these phases where I'll have some time on my hand, and I'll really get the creative muscle going, and I'll write down 5-6 new ideas, something I thought, and like the first thing I have to do is I have to start looking at what other people are doing, because if somebody's doing anything remotely close to it, I am no longer interested. And that is probably good and bad, but again, finding that finding that little window of keeping interest but not overdoing it. And, yes, I could make a chocolate that has the hottest chili known to man if I wanted to, but why? I mean, what are you're just, chocolate is just the vehicle for what, the same thing that people have done for whatever, barbecue sauce, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I will say that it's an important part of what we do. And it's that creative, it's all about creative. It's all about, 20 years later, here we are, this is literally coming into our 20th year this November. You gotta, relevance and staying in the game is a big piece of it. And finding that, it's whether it's for me personally to keep my drive going with it and my interest, all the way to keeping my customers excited. And so it's it's fun. They definitely come in groups. You might see 3 new products in 6 months, and then you won't see anything again for a year and a half, because that's just how we have to work sometimes. But and then one last thing I'll say on that is another big challenge for chocolate is, you're dealing with a product that's made near the equator. And so there's no local chocolate, there are companies that make chocolate from beans that are grown near the equator, and they bring it to Charlottesville, and they can make, or Richmond or wherever, and they make chocolate out of it, but it's not, inherently a Virginia product, because it's not made here. It's not grown here. It grows, it needs a very particular climate. So there's, that's so I think what's been a big focus of ours, and probably honestly a very big part of our keeping that engagement, keeping people say, oh yeah, this makes sense. Why wouldn't Gearharts work with a local winery, whether it's demos, tastings, all the way to products. So we do that. We use and so kind of finding those connections locally, whether it's a brewery or honey. We use a local honey provider. Has the most amazing honey company name of all time. It's called Bubba's Sweet Nectar. It is amazing, and they're out of the valley here. It's great stuff. So, but finding these whenever I can, whether we're in the summer getting some peaches from Childs, finding these connections is a key to bringing it to Charlottesville, and I think that's a big thing. And also I think that's a really good that's an important point too, that people often are very curious about when they talk about, oh, where do you source your beans and where do you do this? So there's two different kinds of chocolate shops. There's what are called bean to bar shops, which are actually companies that make chocolate from beans. And then there are, chocolate shops like us that are often ran, by pastry chefs often, that are taking chocolate and making it into chocolates or caramels or toffees and all that. So that's what we do. And frankly, that's where I want to be. That's where I always want to be. I have zero interest in the chemistry of, I have enough chemistry to worry about here. I would not want to, it's a whole nother ball game making chocolate from beans. And I appreciate it. I get it. I think it's cool, but I don't want to do it. And we're very fortunate now to have, that we're so far into this and we're buying pretty large amounts of chocolate. We're buying 2,000 to probably 2,000 pounds monthly, and a lot more closer to the holidays. So when you're buying that much chocolate, you get to know providers, and that's always been a big part of our motto and our mission statement of where we're sourcing our product, who we're dealing with. That's always been important. And one of the, as you kind of find your way in that, and you start getting a little more muscle behind you and your buying power, you start to find companies that will start doing, they start pretty cool things. And for instance, so Valrhona is a French chocolate company. arguably the best, one of the, if not the best chocolate company in the world, one of the top three. I mean, any pastry chef worth their salt will would say that Valrhona is the best of the best. So we use a lot of their products, and we've made custom chocolates with them, and these are kind of like these artisan chocolate chocolatier kind of programs that they have, where they will, if you buy a certain amount, usually it's about 6,000 pounds, you can actually have a say in how it's made, and as in like its flavor profile, its viscosity, it's how are you going to use it, acidity, the fruit. How do you want the fruit to be like a stone fruit, or do you want the fruit taste to be like a berry? So all these things, and it's really cool when you can. It's absolutely the best of both worlds, because you can find this. You can not only take that product, which is a great product on its own. You not only get to start with that, but then you take that, and then you do what I think I do best, and that's flavors and flavor profiles and taking people on a journey. And so that's what we so that's a really neat thing, and kind of get, so that's I wouldn't want it in any other way. I think I like I said, I love what I do. So
That's awesome. And not to shift gears too much on this, but would you be opposed to talking about a couple of the chocolates that were in the assortment that some of the attendees bought going into today? If only just highlighting a couple of your favorites.
yeah, so I know that we did the Crayola, which is the G chocolate that has so that's our most bittersweet, our kind of our biggest chocolate punch chocolate, that all the dark chocolate lovers always go to. That is the has the cacao nibs that are folded right into the chocolate. It's it's probably one of our top three that we sell. The Maya is always a big one, the traditional truffle. I'm trying to remember, silly me, I left my piece of paper that had them written down on it in the other room. But I feel like we probably did, was it tequila? Maybe, I can't remember if it was tequila or vanilla bean. I felt like it was tequila, but but either way, the white chocolate always becomes this point of people, white chocolate not actually being chocolate is always an interesting point. It only contains cocoa butter, which is the only product of a cocoa bean or the actual fruit that's in it. And but white chocolate is a great thing to work with, especially a high quality chocolate, because you can do things with that chocolate that you just can't do with dark chocolate. So like in the tequila lime example, fresh lime zest would get completely lost in a dark chocolate, or a very robust high cocoa percentage or cacao percentage chocolate. So and the vanilla bean brulee is our other white that has we actually have little vanilla seeds in there. Vanilla bean, when you scrape a vanilla bean, it has all these teeny little seeds, and that give it its great flavor. And I see the comment. That's good. I thought it was the tequila that we did. That's just such a good one. And so these things wouldn't work in a dark or even a milk. So I'm often I feel like we also did malted milk in this group, which was it has the little dot on it, the little pearl. It's a milk chocolate, and that's the reason I bring it up. Yep, there it is. I see it. Thanks, Mike. You're the man. And that's I bring it up because that's always that's one of my, if not my all-time favorite. That's that is of the signature line, that would really be it, because it when I talk about the nostalgic factor and how chocolate and food always brings us around to that, there's that malts. I think of when I was a kid going to this particular drugstore looking for shakes, like malt shakes. And I remember chocolate malts being a thing, and I was always just like, I just couldn't get enough of it. I just was amazed at, like how, even as a silly, 12-year-old, kind of like thinking about like, wow, the creamy factor and the cold and it just had this, what if you added nuts to this, and so it just kind of has that nostalgic factor with me. So malted milk is probably my all-time favorite. But I mean, I go through phases. I mean, I definitely, like right now, every day I pretty much, for the last couple of weeks, I'll eat a dark chocolate caramel, because that's just my new jam right now. But it's something we've been doing for many years. But I eat chocolate every day. I eat like a single piece every day. I mean, why else?
That's
I do this. I work at a chocolate shop. Come on. I mean, why else would you? If this is not gonna make you happy, if you're not happy making, doing something, if you don't love what you're doing, while we have been, I find myself, amazed at how, the success that we've had, and I'm super pleased. But, to stand, dipping 10,000 chocolates in a day, it's not exactly chocolat movie making magic here. I mean, it's tough. You're on your feet, you're hauling 50-pound things of chocolate around. Oh yeah, thank you, appreciate that. I see the list there. Earl Grey teas are really great with too. That's Bill's, my business partner. That's his favorite. Extra bergamot tea is the key on that one. But yeah, it's a like I said, it's not going to be for everybody. That, I think it's I don't know if I would put it in the whimsical, glamorous life, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And we actually, a question about the mint julep.
Yeah.
Do you use the same bourbon whenever you are making these chocolates, or do you mix it around with the different type of bourbons to give it a different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question all the years. So no, we always use Jim Beam. I mean, it's a mint julep. You know what I mean? And maybe part of it is it's liquor is kind of like is a very recent kind of that artisan kind of vibe is coming true. Like I love food and I love drink, and whether it's wine or gin, like 20 years ago when we started, how many gins were there? I mean, there's probably 4, 5, you know what I mean? It was not like it is today, not like these artisan people doing something different, pushing the boundaries. And so that's a great, that's a good point, is that, if it ain't broke, Jim Beam works pretty well in a classic mint julep. So you got to find those baselines that are that people love, and then find those other ways to kind of make your creative side happy.
No, that makes total sense. And I know we're about 10-ish minutes on time, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of pivot this to the crowd. I appreciate everyone who's been engaging in chat and submitting some questions. You guys have had some good ones. If anyone has any questions for Tim, the man of the hour is here, so feel free to unmute yourself and fire away. If not, I got more questions. I'll just keep asking.
Hey Tim, sorry I was stuffing my face with chocolate. Is one of these harder to make than the others? Is it particular one?
So I think, not the signature chocolates. They are, after 20 years of finding, the right, perfecting those techniques. Again, we never set out to reinvent the wheel. I mean, the French have been making these kinds of chocolates for a very long time. And I think you want to kind of draw on that, some of the classic basic ideas, and then what can we do to push it a little bit. And so a lot of the chocolates really have that, they're when you're making 10 or 12,000 pieces, or even like today, I think we made probably 4,000 pieces. Even at that number, you have to find ways, uniformity is everything. And so it has to be a very precise, process. And so a lot of the signature chocolates are generally made, they're all made together. We make all the milks at once. We'll make all the darks at once. We don't interchange, unless we're very busy on like the holidays, where we might do an entire session of just dark chocolates, and then we'll break all the machinery down and then do a session of milk chocolate. But often we're doing the same thing all at once, because it doesn't make sense to try to interchange in between. But the one I would say, peanut butter pups, while again it's an amazing product and I love it, it is insanely. You can look at the pictures on it's I don't think it's on the website right this second, or it might say sold out, but it is a we hand decorate little eyes and a little nose, and it's all in the way that it's piped, to give it that kind of shape. We put little almond ears on it. We are absolute gluttons for punishment when we came up with that one. But the end result is great. And but yeah, other than that, the Maya is one that's made completely different. The Maya is not enrobed in chocolate. It's just, it's a traditional truffle. So we make a ganache from chocolate, cream, and butter. We add ancho chili paste and orange, and then a little bit of sugar. And then we basically let that crystallize and set up. And then we will use a cutting instrument to cut the squares perfectly. And then we hand roll it with extra bittersweet Valrhona chocolate or cocoa powder, excuse me. And and it gets that little kind of shell on it from the cocoa. And there's nothing better than a freshly rolled, kind of still soft truffle. It's a really neat experience.
Are you thinking of opening new stores, specifically in Northern Virginia, for instance?
Yeah, so I don't know that I don't know if that's the kind of growth that, after 20 years, I think we are hesitant. We've seen places, we've watched competitors, we've watched what people do. I don't know that that's the growth that we're looking for. I understand, I think, maybe if we were, had the mindset and had the knowledge that we have now, if we would have had that in our first 5 years of the business, maybe that would have made a lot of sense. But nowadays, chocolate shops are not hard to find. And I think that, rising above and being, I think you can't underestimate the local, feeling and the local vibe. Not every place is Charlottesville, which I know. And so I think you really, I think we've kind of come to the conclusion I'll never say never, but generally speaking, we've been approached by places, especially in the DC area, about franchising and this and that. And that would be cool. It sounds cool. But I don't know that in the end it would, if I'm ready to let the baby go. So I think I think it's a balance, and we have so many other ways of getting the name out. Whether it's wholesale accounts, we continue to do that, which has been that's one part of the business that I can say has taken a pretty good hit with COVID. Is the big boys, all the Wegmans and Whole Foods that we sell at, they continue to kill it. But a lot of those mom and pop kind of wine shops and different specialty stores, I think, have really been hit hard. And so, but we have that, and then of course the internet. I mean, I think this internet thing I think it's going to be something. I'm telling you, mark my words. I also realized in one thing in Zoom that my sarcastic sense of humor does not translate well.
Don't sell yourself short. You just don't get the immediate laughing feedback because everyone's playing.
Is there anything you've made that because of margins, price you had to charge that you couldn't offer it and you're really disappointed because you really liked it?
No, nothing like that. I don't think I've ever, I mean, the only thing that would come to mind, honestly, I mean, even though I keep talking about these poor little pups, but you know, there was a great deal of labor in them, so that it wasn't a product. The good news is that you grow and you start doing more business and you start making more chocolate. You're buying more chocolate, and therefore people, you know, were able to subsidize. You know, it's not, you know, it's just much easier to you know, to really to spread it out and you know, so it really becomes more of a labor game than it is a product. You know, like I just, you know, it's not quite like selling coffee as far as profit margins, but it is, you know, it's, you know, chocolate is it's become, you know, it has a bit of a luxury feel to it. Now we sell single pieces of chocolate all day long. It's affordable, but you know, we also have a lot of customers that buy a whole lot of chocolate. And so, you know, I think that, you know, I can't think of any product that we specifically said, you know, no, that won't, because of, you know, an ingredient wouldn't work.
Any final questions? We have a request to sing the Gearharts theme song.
The Gearharts theme song. Yeah, it's a classic. It really is good. I've, you know, now that I have my voice, unfortunately, laryngitis is setting in. So it's got this whole like freestyle rap thing. It's just really not. It's not appropriate right now.
We'll have to say that for part 2. Well, awesome, Tim. I really appreciate you carving out an hour of your evening to chat with everyone. I think this is awesome. I think you guys have such a cool story. And you know, on behalf of all the UVA alumni, we're happy to have been playing a cool role at every phase of your growth as a business too. So thanks so much. You know, on behalf of everyone, we hope you have a great time and a very successful year. I know we just got through your Super Bowl, so I can only imagine the Pups will be coming back out around springtime. Or
yeah, we actually are doing them for Easter. Yeah,
it's like
they'll make little appearances here.
You're like, I don't really want to do these; they're too popular.
Telling you, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly, but this is awesome, man, and we really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, come and see us sometime. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, well, go Who's.